What is up, you guys? I'm here today at Fredericksburg Motorsports, and today I'm test riding something I've been drooling after. So let's get on this thing. Already I noticed that I'm not as leaned forward as I was on the Triumph 675, but the seat's a little less comfy actually. It's a little bit more stiff, but I'm sure that'll break in. So, without further ado, let's get off the bike and remember that you should wear gloves. And now, without further ado, let's do this shit. Oh man, that just springs on back. That's interesting. You gotta press this down in order to start it. Huh. Now let's have fun on this monster. Oh god. Yeah, this thing has a lot of power. Or should I say torque? How is it in first gear if I just, ease off? Oh, yeah, it looks like just fine. Alright, so, say if I want to turn my turn signal on. And that turns that on. Are they self-canceling? Okay, they're not self-canceling, but holy shit. That was first gear. Alright, here we go. Oh my god! Alright, let's not be irresponsible now. That's the horn. That's gonna be a thing I do with test rides now, I know it. Alright, third gear, 57 miles an hour. Goodness gracious. Alright, suspension, let's talk about that. Right now it's pretty stiff. I suspect that that's because they had a lot of slushy suspension problems with the XSR9. Not so on this thing. This thing's pretty stiff, but from what I understand, these are both up here are fully adjustable, and so is the rear. Engine braking seems pretty good. Now I've heard a lot of things about the engine braking on these, and that's that you can't really feel too much of it, but look at that. That's all just engine right there. That's not too bad. So there's another big complaint about these things is that the tank here, if you can see, has this little groove. My knees don't necessarily fit it, but I've heard that a lot of people don't really fit in these things, and it's just more of a cosmetic sort of thing. So if I had my legs up here, not on the pegs, they'd fit just fine. I'm feeling a little bit of a cut into the knee as well, but it doesn't really bother me like it seems to bother other people. That could just be your thing, I'm not so sure about that. I think it's alright. I'm 6'2", take that for what you will, because I've heard this bike caters a little bit more to taller riders, so if you're a short rider, you may have some trouble with this. I was noticing that I was having some trouble just touching the ground, not because I'm a short guy, but because I was thinking going into this as the experience with that Triumph Street Triple. With the Triumph Street Triple, it was pretty close to the ground. This is a little further up. Now, if I had to say there was one thing I've heard that sounds pretty accurate to describe this, is that it's less of a street fighter and more of a supermoto street bike kind of setup, and that I do feel more upright, and I feel pretty good about that actually. I don't feel a whole lot of strain on my hands, but that could change in the course of this. Now, as far as acceleration goes, God! Oh my god. If acceleration is what you need out of a motorcycle, this is exactly what you need right here. This triple feels very, very good. I'm very pleased with that. Now I'm just cruising right along in 70 miles an hour right now in 5th gear, and I feel the bike feels totally complacent. I'm enjoying that quite a bit. I am riding in standard mode, and for the purposes of this review and this not being my property, I don't think I'm going to switch it over into A. Just because I've heard this bike likes to wheelie a lot. Oh, hey there, buddy. I've heard this bike likes to wheelie a lot, and yeah, I'm not too experienced with that so much yet, so These mirrors from what I've seen kind of look a little dinky. They're parts bin, as Revzilla would say. I think they actually kind of complement the look of the bike a little bit. I would say if you're interested in it, go ahead and spring for bar ends. Looks like you definitely have the ability to here. A lot of people don't like the asymmetry of this bike. You know, the gas tank pull is here, the speedometer is just right there. It's not all centered, and I have to say I kind of like that. I'm not really big on asymmetry, but I think it does very well with the style that this bike is going for. I'll say right away that these turn signals here, floppy as they may be, I think they kind of go all right, but that's something I would definitely change. But let me tell you, as far as the ride of this bike goes, I'm so happy with it. Everything feels like it's where it should be. I can get to the turn signals just fine, the high beams, the traction control system. And I think as has been noted, the traction control system can be changed by letting off the throttle. Alright, so I'm in traction control 2 right now. Now, what you'd want to do is use this for rain. Just, you know, in the case that you have slippage problems. I'm going to let off again. And I'm in 1. I can't seem to get out of 1. So I'm not quite sure how to turn it off just yet. I'm sure I'll get home and find out why. But like I said, as far as this ride goes, I'm just a grin ear to ear right now. I have to say it's kind of interesting that they have a little eco symbol right up here by your gear indicator. I'm assuming that's because if you keep it in a certain RPM, it will basically, it's basically just saying, hey, you're not going too crazy on the gas, you're saving a little bit of fuel, you're good. I am noticing that the pegs are, I can't say they're rough, but I am feeling a lot of vibration through them. So keep that in mind if you're prone to a numb leg when you're going on longer trips with this thing. There's plenty of room to sit back on this thing too. I just actually sat back on the passenger seat for a second, and I feel like I still got legs to go, which I guess for the sport bike kind of stance ride, it's not that much of a surprise, but me coming from a cruiser line of view, it's quite substantial. Allows you to get in a little bit more sporty if you use the passenger pegs. Not that I've done that, just hypothetical. If you've got a little bit of an inseam to you, you might find this seat a little bit more comfortable. I kind of have a little, narrow butt, and maybe it's the seat just not being broken in yet, but the seat feels very wide. Like it's digging a little bit into my upper thighs, but it's not uncomfortable. It's just something I notice. Okay, we're in one of those dangerous roads. Let's see if we can feel that traction control kicking in. Maybe not. The brakes on these feel very good. And I have a good feeling I've missed my turn a little bit, so I'm probably going to try and find a little road to turn off of here. Oh, damn it. There's the horn again. I got to stop doing that. Oh. Oh my goodness. You'll be up to speed in no time on this thing. Alright, now I'm in 4th gear and eco mode just kicked in at about 6,000 RPM. This thing has a red line of 11. I feel like I have plenty of power here and plenty to spare. As I sit here riding this thing, to give you an idea of how good I feel on this, I'm trying to struggle with the thought of buying it. And by struggle, I mean trying to fight myself not to. I gotta say, guys, this is a bike that I've actually been drooling after for a long time, as I said. And I just love everything. It's oozing with style, it's oozing with power, torque, you name it. I'm trying to remain objective about this, and it's kind of hard. Because it feels incredibly maneuverable. And it feels very flickable. Good gracious, there's so much power on this thing. God, if you ever have trouble getting up to speed on a bike, you will not find that here. One thing I'll notice is the shifting on that Triumph that I rode was a lot smoother than this. Now, me coming from a Suzuki, or at least Suzuki Cruisers, if there's one thing you should note about those is that you have to shift those with authority. and I'm used to feeling a nice little click. This isn't really much of a nice click as much as the cruisers were, and you didn't necessarily have to kick them into gear, but this Yamaha, you know when you're in gear and you know when you're not. Some people will like that, some people won't. I have no preference, honestly. I like the smoothness of the Triumph, and I kind of like the authority with which I have to shift the Yamaha. It's not something that would hinder you in any way, but it's just something to note. Now here's where I can get into a little bit of a curve. Doing 70 miles an hour around them like it's 45. Oh, hey, stop sign. As I noticed, very good brakes. Very good. See, this bike is only 107 miles old, and I would say that the tires should probably be well worn in by now to get to their, most effectiveness. And I have to say that they do feel pretty grippy. There were a few little rocks I passed over by there, and I don't feel like I dirt want dirt. Dirt me now. Anyway, the tires feel like they're pretty grippy through the curves. I can definitely feel that. So good on you, Yamaha, for giving us these stock. Now, leaning the bike over is definitely not something I'm finding a challenge at all. Another testament to the tires, I would think, and also the center of gravity. Doing about roughly 55, 60 through these curves, and honestly, it feels like I'm doing 25 in a car. That's not a bad thing. It's not at the speed of which I refer to, it's just the comfort. Alright guys, let's level out here. This is a $9,500 bike, and I believe it's more than that if you've got the yellow paint job with the Yamaha 40th anniversary color scheme. Ooh, nice little bump there. But I am having no qualms in my head trying to justify that price. The brakes work awesome. Just everything seems to work really well on this. And I'm seeing that while not being as smooth or refined a machine as the Triumph Street Triple or Speed Triple if you've ridden that, I can definitely appreciate the power, the style, just all the components. Okay, that's not my stop sign. Just leaning over in this thing feels so right. Alright, so there's one thing that we can't all get around, and that's this display. The Yamaha Bolt came out with a display sort of like this, and a lot of people were saying that it's hard to read. I can't see my speed, I can't see my RPM. Was that a thing? RPM? I don't know if those things actually had a tachometer in them, but this looks like they improved the design quite a bit. No matter how bright or dark it is, I can actually see it just fine. And as others have noted, what's up, man? I'm seeing a lot of information in the same circle. And none of it is really hard to really... Do I have a fuel light? Well, let's just talk about the gas anyway. It looks like I'm close on E, so either way, there's a lot of information squeezed into a small little sphere here, and I don't have any trouble finding any of it. I just had a concern for a second because it looks like I'm empty. There's usually some bars here in the fuel indicator, but I'm not really seeing a gas light. Yeah, I don't see a little gas light on the gas dash, so good chance I'm low on gas right now. We'll find out through this curve, hopefully not. Goodness gracious, that feels good. So there's one thing I wanted to note as well, that a lot of you guys, if you guys are starting out riding, I'm going to have to agree with the Peanut Gallery on this one and say that do not buy this as your first bike. I've ridden bikes for a few years now. I would like to think I'm good at handling power, but I don't think this is a good bike for anyone to start out on. This has way too much power, way too readily available. But I will say, if you are buying this as a starter bike, what the fuck are you doing? And also, enjoy, because I think if you can manage your throttle wrist, this bike is very docile, very complacent, being at wherever you want to be in the rev range. Yeah, that guy just saw it. So he's got the same look in his eye as I get. But it seems to be complacent with wherever you want to be in the rev range, so long as you're just cruising along in the right gear. But the second you give it anything, good God, you better have that traction control on. Sitting at a standstill, I can say that the seat seems to like want to cut into my thighs a little bit. Not necessarily cut, but there's a lot of pressure in my upper thighs. So I know you won't be sitting on this bike for any extended periods of time. However, yeah, it's... Oh, wow. Looks like we got 0.3 miles till we're out of gas. I think that's a sign I need to take this back to the dealership. But as far as the seat goes, yeah, it will put a little bit of pressure into your thighs. So definitely keep that in mind if you plan on sitting for a long time, and if you're a shorter rider who's trying to reach the road on it. It'll take up a little bit of real estate. One thing that's a little bit wonky I'm noticing is that I've got the empty fuel blinking, or the fuel warning blinking, and I'm not exactly sure how much I've got left. It's saying 1.6, 1.4, little number going up. I don't know if that's how many miles I have, or why it's necessarily going up, but I'm sure with a little bit of time you'll get to understand the fuel indicator system as well. Now me, that kind of makes me paranoid, just because I've never had a bike where I had any kind of fuel indicator system. Basically just used my odometer and common sense. So it doesn't really bother me, but it's something flashing at me, just so you guys know. You know, I really hate to make complaints about the seat, about how it cuts in a little bit, because I absolutely love the seat and the way that it looks. I think it is a gorgeous compliment to the color scheme. I think it works very well. Neutral's very easy to find, so that's good. Alright. I'm going to stop at this gas station and just check my location real quick. So one thing, as you can see, I love this. I love the stitching. I love that burgundy feel to the rest of the color scheme that just isn't so harsh on contrast. But this will definitely, you will definitely notice this right here. Alright, so we do have to go that way. 91 minimum. So we're going to be putting the good stuff in here.
Beautiful day, isn't it?
Gorgeous, man, gorgeous. Easy. So what else is there to talk about? I absolutely love the lines of this. Rude. I absolutely love the lines of this. You can even see the irregularity with which this thing is just loving in style. It's got all this engine on this side, and then up on a little bit more, then you got the transmission. I'm assuming that's what that is. And then just you have all, like, it's order and then chaos. That's the best way I can describe the aesthetics of this bike, but it's just everything in every good way. Alright, so I think I'm going to take this back to the dealership now, before they wonder where I've been, because hell, I don't even know. No, there is one little jolting thing that I think I should point out to you guys. Whenever I'm getting off the throttle, like immediately going into engine brake, I think I feel a little chirp, and I don't know whether or not that's the traction control, that's the rear tire actually chirping from the force of the engine braking, or what. I'm not sure. Yeah. TC1, TC2. And if I hold it up, it turns off. That's how we do it. Now if I were to change the rider mode, we got A mode. What's the difference with A mode? Let's find out. Ooh. Hello. All right. I see that. I see what you're doing. 66 miles an hour in third gear, and a little bit the same, but wow. a little bit more throttle response. Oh, I think that was the traction control. All right, well, I'm not going to hooligan around too much in this. I'm going to bring this back to Fredericksburg Motorsports. I hope you enjoyed this review, guys. If you enjoyed this video, and if you enjoyed this bike, you know what to do. Thanks for watching, guys. Look at this turning radius. It's like it's nothing. I can turn in a radius smaller than a smart car with this thing. It's great. Great stuff.